Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Day by Day, or Jake. You can call me either one. Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. That is a quote I love. It is by none other than Albert Einstein. Now, looking back into one of my videos back in October 16th, we were able to locate an area in late February that literally caused a great type of quick crash. Now, was that a coincidence that it happened to locate a mysterious fractal in history, a nature cycle or a nature washout? That's a topic that I'm going to cover a little bit today with what I see in the S&P 500. Now, you've seen my video on the Dow macro analysis, and this screen might look weird to you. See, this dark maroonish looking line is my Dow, is a Dow overlaid with SPY. And I have not created all of these lines intentionally, but they do match up quite well with forecasts of what's to come. You could see this big square right here belongs to the Dow macro, while this circle belongs to the SPY, and this circle belongs to the SPY. So overall, we're seeing this pattern. We're seeing a good news event sometime in the new year, but we also see volatility into the new year, and we'll see if we get that. And that brings us back to that quote, which is a lovely quote. And if nature is run by mathematics, perhaps we can find time cycles that are very similar to history in sentiment, because sentiment controls money. And what controls sentiment? Perhaps events that create enormous amounts of fear or enormous amounts of greed. And therefore, if you can spot those events in the past, perhaps you can even forecast the next mysterious one. The one that makes you think that it's just a coincidence, or is it not? So, with that being said, let's remove this Dow overlay so that we could take a look at what that looks like in SPY, and then switch back over to the Dow and see what that looks like there. 1 second, it's gonna, sometimes the page loads slowly. There it is. So there's the Dow. You see this whole shape, the good news event, the type of top that my macro had. And commit that to memory for a second and look back at the SPY one. And I did each of these individually without considering the other. But I've come to a very similar conclusion. And this one contains a little bit more nuance, the SPY. And now we can go ahead and take a look at what I see in terms of still sticking to that 2003 moment in time that has possibly a local top to come, and then a dip into the new year, and then followed by what looks to be this good news floating up cycle. And I'm going to continue to remain with that particular bias until the data proves me different, which it sometimes can, and it may unveil as these shapes morph in time. As you can see if you're familiar with my videos, again, I always look for these curves to match up in history, and that's what I'm looking for. So if we now dive into smaller time frames so that we can take a look at this intricate view of things and just zoom in. We've got a trend line here of highs, which offers a very plausible type of strong resistance. However, I'm not going to assume we just crack down yet until I actually see it with my greeny formula, which is this green curve right here. Until that starts to really snap down and show wilting action, which it's not even doing yet on the daily, that could morph, but I'm looking for those clues, and until then, the market does remain strong. If I go to a 2-day, you can see it's embedded. Still, that shows a sign of strength. We really need to see in this case it's on the mat, so that foretells possible weakness. In this case, it was going down with some weakness, and now it's morphed back up. So again, we don't really have a clue here about when that weakness shows up, and it's going to be about revealing that in real time when it does start to sell off, if it does. Because on the macro, this area remains support. This area is a very strong resistance, and I still see this, even if we do get a dip right here, I do see it being bought and running up to the fall, which happens to be the election months. So with all that being considered, we've got a very nice forecastable picture of probabilities here. And when we zoom into them, we can really analyze what it is that I'm seeing here, in that this area remains strong support, and I'm forecasting what I call a depression time cycle. A depression has nothing to do with depression as in the Great Depression or anything. What it means is it's a weak time cycle, and that's what I'm picking up on right here. Oftentimes weak time cycles will dip, but sometimes they can just float sideways until the time cycle elapses and then continue to float up. Which one we get, well, that's still a guessing game. Now, the NASDAQ, if you take a look at the NASDAQ, which is the NDX, we do have a clue of weakness as greeny starts to come down, but it has not done that yet for the SPY. See, it's still embedded. And that's interesting. But if we look at oil, which I also have a video on, we notice that this entire depressive time cycle has elapsed without a sizable dip, and now we have greeny floating up, and perhaps oil is lifting the markets in that sense, is that you could see what I estimated was a depressive time cycle just became a left translated dip into support and then rising back up. And this greenie forecasted that rise back up in real time as it rogues back up. So it's very interesting, the precarious position we're in the markets, where the NASDAQ looks like it's weakening on the weekly, while oil remains strong and possibly lifts some of those energy stocks and creates that counterbalance, keeping SPY strong in these moments. And you can take a look at, this pattern, what my expectation is. In the strong case, again, if this is a little depressive cycle in time to come, we may just dip on a shallower side if it's strong and continue to trade sideways until we float up, in which case later during those fall months we see something a little bit more risque, as you can say. And as we approach that bigger bubble in time, I will reanalyze all of these curves, nature's mathematics, to try to discern if we are really repeating history in a sense. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I really would appreciate a thumbs up on YouTube, as it helps YouTube algos discover me. And if you'd like to receive these content updates for free, I do them here and there, and you can subscribe and hit the notifications bell to receive notifications of whenever I do release new content updates. That concludes this video, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Signing out day by day.